Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1AAuto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you front control arm replacement. This is a 2010 Buick Enclave, but this is basically the same for this generation of GM SUVs, the Enclave, Acadia, Outlook, and Traverse. And we're going to show you on the passenger side. Driver's side is the same procedure, and we do recommend you replace these in pairs because usually whatever's wrong with one side, whether it's a ball joint or rust, is eventually going to happen to the other side. You're going to need new control arms from 1AAuto.com, jack and jack stands, 8 to 24 millimeter sockets and or wrenches, 8 and 21 millimeter wrenches you will need, ratchets and extensions, large hammer, penetrating oil, torque wrench, and after this repair you will need a front end alignment done on your vehicle. You're going to start by removing the front wheel. You're going to remove the cap if you have one, and then the lug nuts are 22 millimeters. If you don't have the benefit of air tools, loosen up your lug nuts first, then raise and secure the vehicle, and then remove the lug nuts, wheel, and tire. Use penetrating oil on the stabilizer link where it hooks to the strut, and then an 18 millimeter wrench, and you'll first loosen it up, use another wrench, hook it on there, or use a larger socket and ratchet. Loosen up the nut first, and then you'll want to put either an 8 millimeter wrench or an 8 millimeter ratchet, and if you turn the ratchet clockwise, it actually drives the stud out of the nut. The other thing you can do is you can use a set of locking pliers and hook them on the back side once you get it loosened up enough, and then remove the nut with your wrench. That's just another way to do it, and then put that stabilizer link to the side. Control arm attaches at 3 different points: a nut on the front, 24 millimeters, a nut on top of the ball joint, that's 21 millimeters, and then a bolt and nut that are 21 millimeters that hold the rear of the control arm into the frame. Use a socket and breaker bar, or a double wrench method, which is 24 millimeter wrench, and then you hook another wrench onto it for extra leverage, and loosen up that front nut. And once it gets loose, you can use your regular ratchet or just the wrench, and you can remove that nut all the way. On the back fastener, you'll need a 21 millimeter wrench, and either another 21 millimeter wrench or a 21 millimeter socket with a ratchet. And can help to have a deep socket in this case. I was able to get by with a regular socket and just put the ratchet into it a little bit. Remove that nut, but leave the bolt in place. And then you're going to want to put some pressure up from underneath on the suspension. This will help hold the ball joint shaft into the steering knuckle. Mine actually broke loose fairly easily. A little bit of penetrating oil on the top of that ball joint stud, 21 millimeter wrench, kind of hook it in and under there. You will need a wrench to get under the CV joint, and once you get it loose, it actually came loose pretty easy. Remove the nut most of the way, and then you'll want to break the control arm loose. Mine actually just comes loose as I lower down the control arm. You may have to give the steering knuckle a couple of hits with a hammer, and I'll show you just how to hit it. You can see that my control arm actually just comes loose, which I was actually kind of surprised about. But if you should need to hit it with a hammer, you can see it came loose right there with just a little tap of my hand. You'd hit the knuckle right there with the hammer while the control arm is hanging down, and you leave the nut on just to keep things together. Now I'm going to remove, there's 2 bolts that go through and they have nuts on top. I'm just loosening them up first. These are 18 millimeter. They hold the mount in place. I'm going to remove one of the bolts, and I'm just going to loosen up the other bolt so that mount will swivel and allow me to get the control arm out. So there I remove one bolt, and loosen up the other one. In order to get that rear bolt out, you have to take your jack and jack up the stabilizer bar. And jack it up a little bit, be able to tap that bolt out some. And raise it up a little bit more. And use a pry bar just to tap on that part. And then I kind of figure out that basically if you just you raise it up a little bit more and take the nut off of the ball joint, kind of take that nut off the ball joint, drop the control arm down, and then you can move the control arm around and take that bolt right out of there. Then you'll need to let your jack down out of the stabilizer bar to get the control arm out the rest of the way. Here you can see on the right a new control arm from 1A Auto. On the left is the rusted one. It has a bad ball joint, and the control arm from 1A Auto is going to go in exactly the same. And when you go to reinstall, just take the shipping protectors off of the front shaft and off of the ball joint. Keep that nut in your hand. You can throw the protector away. Put the front shaft in first. Put the rear mount just kind of into place. And then get the ball joint up into place. You might have to push the ball joint just to angle it better. Push the ball joint up into the steering knuckle. And then just thread the nut on there to hold it in place. Put your jack back under the stabilizer bar and raise it up and out of the way so you can get that bolt in. And then you use 2 screwdrivers, or you can use something a little bigger. There are slots in the mount, and you just move those. It would help to have another pair of hands while one person puts the control arm into place. The other one can put the bolt in. I was able to hold it well enough and get the bolt started in. And then you just kind of manipulate the control arm and tap it in with a hammer. Now work that front mount bolt you put into place, and push it in there, and I just kind of use a combination of pushing it up in there and threading it in, and then it goes in, and I put the bolt on the other side, or the nut on the other side. And at this point you can tighten those up, and you want to torque those to 70 foot-pounds. Now you can put that 24mm nut back in place. You let your stabilizer bar back down, put the 21mm nut back on there. And at this point I'm just going to preliminarily tighten both of those. I'm going to torque them up a little bit later. Just get them on there so they're snug. Same thing with the 24mm nut. Now we're going to put pressure back up underneath the control arm that holds that stud into place. I tap on the steering knuckle just to allow it to kind of get some pressure and seat itself. And then you want to tighten it to about 100 foot-pounds. I just kind of try and roughly do it with the 21mm wrench and the other wrench for some extra torque. Stabilizer link back in place. Just make sure you you get the ABS wire on the correct side of it. I put it back in place. I still have the locking pliers on there, so I just left them on there. Put the nut on, then tighten it up until the locking pliers start to get pinched. And you could have skipped this step and just done what I do next, which is just have your wrench, your 18mm wrench on there, use an 8mm socket and ratchet, and you actually drive the socket and ratchet counterclockwise, which pulls the stud through, and then tighten it up with the wrench. make sure your harness is clipped back in place. And next we're going to torque those other two fasteners. So the vehicle is now on the ground. You can see the lift. There's nothing holding up the front. What is holding up the front is I have my jack underneath the control arm, and the car is basically in a level position. And now I'm going to torque that front 24mm nut to 120 to 130 foot-pounds. And that rear one, 95 to 105 foot-pounds. And notice I had the torque wrench on the nut end, and I was holding it with the other end with the wrench. And now we can raise the vehicle back up, put the tire on, and then just thread the lug nuts on preliminarily. With the vehicle still in the air, you can just tighten the lug nuts up preliminarily. You're not tightening them up all the way here, just so they're snug. Lower the vehicle back down, torque the lug nuts to 110 foot-pounds. And I use a crossing pattern. Torque one, go to the opposite one, and then go to the opposite one, minus one, and the opposite one, and then I just go right around and check them. And then last but not least, put the cap back on, and you will want to have a front end wheel alignment done after you've done this repair. Thanks for tuning in. We hope this video helped you out. Next time you need parts for your car, please visit 1aauto.com. Also check out our other helpful how-to as well as diagnosis videos.